Hello, hello, Cougar fans. Hopefully your heart rate has come back down to normal after that absolutely absurd double overtime Cougar men's basketball win at Phog Allen Fieldhouse. We thought, given what a momentous event this was, even though we were very much planning on being back in the studio or respective studios for Bobby and I Tuesday night, we had to have something out there, and we decided to give you all a clip of our Patreon React show. We recorded this about 15-ish minutes, if that, after the game went final. Give you all a taste for those of you that listen to our show, but maybe don't subscribe, or even those of you that subscribe and support us, but maybe don't check in for all the premium shows. This is a little taste of what you get there at patreon.com/shpodcast. Even if you don't subscribe, hopefully you enjoy roughly 15 minutes of Cougar talk, giving you a little something in your ears before we are back at the normal time to talk about this amazing Cougar men's basketball win, but also, as usual, a jam-packed week of just general Houston Cougar news. So enjoy the Cougar talk. Again, hopefully everyone's heart rate has come back down to normal and gonna stay here because it's not at its customary spot at the end of our episode. Go Cougs.
Dude, this was insane. I buried the Cougs late in the second half when Kansas went up 66-60. I was kind of like, that was like with a minute left. I was like, yeah, this game feels over. And then it was 66-62. I'm looking at the win probability chart. Fantastic, by the way.
I'm navigating
with 35
right now.
With 35 seconds left, it's 66-62, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably it. And then the next step is 66-64. Wait a minute. And then at that point, 17 seconds left to go. Kansas is still an 80% chance to win this game. The next step, if you move along, is overtime, which is just awesome. And then, it dips down to 99% with 21 seconds left to go in overtime, with the score being 79-73. Yeah, that was pretty much it. But it wasn't, guys. It wasn't. You get a huge three from Emmanuel Sharp, who hits it from
his first shot of the game.
I'm pretty sure he hit that from Kansas City, and I don't even know how far Lawrence is from Kansas City, but he was in a different zip code, area code, whatever code you want to call it. He was in the other one. Shouldn't have made that shot. And, he's been walking in the boot, as everyone listening to a premium podcast of this probably knows. He was walking in the boot. If you actually go back and watch that shot, he comes down pretty gingerly on that right foot. And I don't even know if that's the one that's hurt, but you could definitely see he was favoring it a little bit coming down on that shot. And so to make that shot there, massive, huge, great for the, great there. And then if you're Kansas, how do you get a 5 seconds there?
Honestly, I don't know.
You had a timeout. Yeah.
You have
how is
Self DeJuan Harris, one of the best veteran point guards in the country.
Yes. How is Bill Self not in front of Kelvin Sampson calling a timeout there? Like, how's he not in front of Sampson calling a timeout? Like, if you're Self at that point, don't you run down, call the timeout, and then just be like, you know what? If I get called for a tech, that's fine. I'll give them a shot in the ball. Like, they got a better shot at that.
It's at Phog Allen, so you'll probably get away with it too.
Right. I mean, there were times where you saw it late in the game. Phog Allen was really loud, and Bill Self's on the court, and the ref's pulling him back, and it's like, hello, what are we doing here, guys? Like, the coach is on the court. And look, as a basketball fan, not just as a U of H fan, don't call that there, right? Like, but also, you can't also grab the coach and be like, hey, coach, take a couple of steps back. Like, that seems a little weird, but I'm not going to bitch about the refereeing. That's never been my thing. But that was just kind of, like I said, if I'm Bill Self, I am down past midcourt in front of Kelvin Sampson calling that timeout, risking the technical there. I don't understand how that happens. I do not understand how it happens. I'm glad it did.
Mea culpa to two different things. This is where I would not be like normally being like, how dare you count this team out? But I have two different times that I could probably document to you. We were down 4, I want to say it was, going to the last minute of the first overtime. Or no, I think it was like down 4 in the later stages of the regulation. And then I think when we were down 6, I texted you, not like, oh, we're going to lose this, but more just like, I'm getting set up. Now, like, I still had the game on,
Yeah.
and I was still like, sprinting between my living room and where I record the podcast with like, the usual podcast accessories. But I was like, at that point, like, all right, let me just like, this is going to be us just fouling to keep it within a certain amount. Like
Yep.
I just
Yep.
had mentally accepted what I thought the game
The
was going to
defeat.
be. Except like,
Yep.
hey, like fought hard, way more competitive than last year's game. But yeah, that is, I don't think we're gonna.
But you know what? You know what? Anybody, shit. What did I say? ESPN had us at a 99% chance to lose there.
And that's not the algo being messed up, by the way. If you if you took it in a vacuum, like, hey, this is the situation. This team is down on the road by this much with this much time to go. Oh yeah,
and not just
gonna win that one. 80-1, by the way, since 2018 when leading at the half at Phog Allen. 80-2 now. Love it.
Love it. Gotta love it. So, let's talk a little bit about the individual performances here. How's that sound?
Yep, let's do it.
Who do you want to call out first? I think you and I are going to call out the same person.
I think you have. Actually, I think there's two really good ones. Like, obviously, like, I feel like there's two right answers to this question. So I'm curious, what's yours?
Malik Wilson.
Yep, that's
23 minutes, 18 points, 6 rebounds. It hits the game tying 3 in overtime. There were multiple times today that I texted you and said, "How is Malika Wilson not on the floor?" A lot of overtime, Malik Wilson wasn't on the floor. In a game in which you played 50 minutes, Malik Wilson didn't even have wasn't on the floor for half of it. And I thought, this is not a shot at Emmanuel Sharp or anyone else on the floor. I thought he was the most effective player on the court all game. You can make the argument for Wani late. I think Wani had some flashes early where he looked really good. And then he kind of had some plays where you're just like, Wani, I need you to make some free throws here. I know you're 58%.
Between like the first 10 minutes and last 5 minutes of regulation wasn't his best ever. But those people, like after the last 5 minutes of regulation, oh buddy. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and he was massive there. But Malik Wilson for me, 8 of 11 from the field, 2 of 3 from the 3-point line. Like I said, including that massive 3 at the end of overtime. So Malik Wilson, he also was a force defensively. You see it and you don't really look. 0 steals, 0 blocks, but at the same time, it felt like he was there, not allowing the Kansas guards to get easy buckets.
Yeah, he's always going to give you something in the defense and rebounding and toughness. It's one of those, anything Malik's able to give you offensively feels like a nice bonus. But he's been doing a lot better at lately. Like you have been, I think, chief among the two of us and pointing out regularly, like, hey, this is a new and improved Malik. I would say since about a month ago, mid-December-ish. Like we've really seen a guy.
It was sorry to interrupt you. For me, it was that like 9-day break when the Cougs didn't play for like 9 days. He came back the next game. He looked pretty good. But overall, I thought right about then you could see a difference in Malik's game suddenly.
Feels like, yeah, he's been given more freedom and certainly a level of confidence, which, I mean, you'd think a guy who's on the older side, okay, you should start having that confidence. But like, it's not a given. It's not something we took as for sure going to happen with Malik. And again, always kind of felt like that stuff was a bonus from him. Like you're getting the toughness, and I would say he's certainly established himself by now as your second best by a decent margin. Like Milos Uzan is still your best ball handler out there. He's still, I mean, he's your point guard one for a reason. He's the guy you feel most comfortable with bringing the ball up. But I think Malik's the guy when I see him bringing the ball up the court, or I see him trying to facilitate in the half court, I'm not just like, you look like a animal trying to walk on hind legs here. You look you look like you're like, love LJ Cryer, love Emmanuel Sharp. They both at different points in this game, not their best shooting performances, but I would say the box score belies big shots those guys hit. And also just like the defensive effort, the toughness, and the fact that you were in this game at all.
Yep.
But like Malik Wilson's the other guy you feel comfortable with the ball in his hands out there. And I thought that was really important. And I mean, you had to play Milos Uzan a lot of minutes this game, but I thought the most effective guy when you did have to rest Uzan was Malik Wilson. And I want to go back to something we've talked about a lot on this show, especially the free shows. Like, what did we not deal with tonight, Bobby?
Fouls.
Yeah, I mean, I know Wani had
You had
four.
Wani have four.
Yeah, but like
Wani having four in a double overtime game.
yeah, by the second OT, you're gonna have at least a couple of your rotation guys at 4 fouls.
Yeah.
One of these two teams, even though there was a big disparity, we won't. I think we'll keep the tone positive while acknowledging the bad officiating in this game. One team got a more generous whistle, Bobby, and I don't think I'm being unfair in saying that. Correct?
Yeah,
No,
I think so.
but only one team actually dealt with a key guy fouling out in this game, and that was
And
before Lunga fouled out at the beginning of the second OT.
and let's talk about that real quick. That Kansas offense looked like a completely different offense without him out there. And you saw them not score. You saw them barely score once he went out in that second overtime. That offense looked anemic without him being able to run that high-low offense that they were running so effectively against the Cougs.
Yeah, I mean that I know they weren't having KJ Adams today, and I think obviously a very important guy to them.
Yeah.
But I think that like that Badunga Dickinson lineup is good. Like we beat Kansas, and I think U of H on the balance of this season will be a better team than this Kansas team. I think we'll finish at least a couple games ahead of them in the Big 12. That's a good basketball team. You just beat them at their place.
Oh yeah,
the best basketball team, road, away, whatever you call it. That's the best basketball team by a good margin you've beaten this season. I think you.
Yeah, I mean your best win. Your best win up to this, according to KenPom, is going to be number 38 BYU, who you did absolutely destroy at your home court. This makes the Cougs, I want to say 3-3 in quad one games. I was listening to another podcast that we listened to, Ion College Basketball, from CBS, and they were kind of chiding the Cougs for some of the fans. One of the guys, I can't remember who it was talking about
probably Parrish. Parrish has a fucking burn his ass about. I think he's good. I think he's good. Like I still listen to his podcast. I think he's a knowledgeable basketball person, but he's just like certain guys, and like reasonable minds can disagree. Like I don't think U of H is a top 5 team at this point. I don't think if you put a handful of like, hey, I think this team can win it all. I think it's Auburn. I think there's a couple other teams. I don't know if U of H is on that list yet, even though I think U of H is one of the better teams out there. But I feel like he just has a burn his ass about the Cougars. Sorry.
Yeah, he said, he was talking about how the computers love us, the net rating, KenPom, they all love us, but we're 2-3 against quad one games. And, I do think that's a little flawed because there's been 2 or 3 games where we've absolutely dominated a team and they drop out of quad one and you're kind of going, I mean,
it's kind of punished for being good here.
yeah. But this is, I think I texted you and again, reasonable minds can disagree that this felt like a game that the Cougs.
I was actually about to bring that up, by the way, before you got in there.
Yeah, this one felt like a game the Cougs needed, and I think needed seems like, oh, you need this to absolutely get into the tournament, or maybe you need it to be a 1 seed, or you need it. For me, it felt like this team needed to beat a good team. Not that we haven't. I mean, you dominate a top 50 BYU team, but a game that the Cougs just felt like they needed to get the monkey off the back and they could believe that they could beat good teams. I know this team returns 4 starters from a team last year that beat good teams and went to the Sweet 16, but I feel like you need Milo Suzon, maybe a Terrence Arsenault, even though he was on the team and didn't play it, but he didn't play a ton. I feel like some of the guys on the team, Tugler didn't really play in the tournament last year. Just needed to see the ball, needed to see the scoreboard say the good guys won against a good team. They haven't done it this year. Again, we can argue that maybe that Alabama game, if it doesn't go into overtime due to a bad call, maybe you win that game. Yeah, sure. But you need it in the sense that you want this win to show the guys that, like, look, what we're doing is right. You just went in here, and this feels like something. It's weird to say that could spark a run for the Cougs here, but because we haven't lost a Big 12 game since last year, and you're
12-game winning streak currently.
Yeah, and you're on a 12-game winning streak. But this just felt like one of those games that if you lose it, it could spiral into you becoming suddenly a 6 seed, and you're losing games on the road to West Virginia. You maybe drop that game at Arizona. You drop the game, at home versus Kansas. It just felt like something that like this team could lose some belief that they are going to be the team that can beat a good team. And we know that they can, but it just had that feeling to me that this is what this team needed this win to really come together this year.
I think any quibbling about that, I think is just over the definition of the word need. I think I agree with your general point in the sense it removes the argument, and I think the only argument that was ever really used against this team, and it was kind of the one you were describing, I think Gary Parrish
Yeah.
making, like, okay, but have you,
Who have you beat?
who have you beat? Which I guess, fine. You didn't beat Bama, didn't beat Auburn, though again, Bama and Auburn are two of the best four teams in the
Right.
country, and you didn't play either of them on your home court. San Diego State, like, doesn't that's a loss that's not aging super well. And it was one that I think when we talked about in the immediate aftermath of the Players Era event, that was the one that pissed us off the most. That was the one where it's just like,
Yep. Yep.
Bama, whatever, like, it's tough matchup, got some stuff go against you, whatever. But that was the one where you felt like you kind of pissed it away. And I think in this game, I think tells you now, almost 2 months later, this is a very different basketball team, which we knew it would be. We kind of take it on faith that a Kelvin Sampson team will improve this much over the course of a season. But it's still good to see. It's still good to see that this is in no way the same team. Not that you won't lose, because there's some tough road. Like, you're gonna play Iowa State at home. That's gonna be very tough. You're gonna go to Arizona.
Hell, your next game's gonna be tough.
Yeah, West Virginia is gonna be very tough. Even though Baylor's kind of disappointing, that's not gonna be an easy one to go to. Tech's gonna be tough. Like, I don't think this team's gonna lose at home, but there are enough good teams remaining on the home slate that if you don't bring your A game, there are teams that can beat you. This Kansas team, I think that's what makes this win so satisfying. Is I think this is a better team, this Kansas team, than the one we saw twice last year.